To start the Manchester Community School Board meeting, pledge allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call. Mr. Fierce-Dose is not going to make it tonight. Mr. Penrod, welcome. Here. Mr. Orr.
Here.
Mrs. Tobias.
Present.
Mr. Raymer.
Present.
And Mr. Esposette.
Here.
And I'm here, Randy. We've got 6 of us. Any additions, deletions this evening?
No additions or deletions.
Hearing of patrons. Good evening, patrons. And we're going to hear from you, aren't we? All right. Thank you. Presentations and recognitions.
Recognitions.
Good evening. It's my honor to stand before you tonight to talk about an outstanding educator amongst us. On Friday, November 21st, 2025, I was fortunate enough to travel to Indianapolis with Mrs. Watkins, principal at Manchester Elementary, and Mrs. Janegi, Corporation Curriculum Director, to the 4th Annual Indiana Education Excellence Awards Gala in downtown Indianapolis. This gala recognizes schools and individuals who have displayed excellence in their approach to teaching and inspire a hunger for learning in their students. This year, only 2 STEM teachers were recognized in the state of Indiana, and we're extremely excited to be honored by one of those teachers tonight, or to honor one of those teachers tonight. So at this time, I would like to ask Mrs. Janegi to come up and please share some information about Mr. Joel Eichenauer.
I'm going to read to you just an excerpt from the nomination narrative. Good morning, scientists, greets Mr. Eichenauer energetically as students enter his room with excitement and curious anticipation of what's to come. And what's to come in Mr. Eichenauer's class never disappoints. Joel embraces the mindset that sometimes you just need to poke the world and see what happens. He shares this inquisitive thinking with his students by asking them probing questions such as, what do you notice? What do you wonder? Joel has created a school atmosphere where every student believes they are a scientist. He has constructed an organic curriculum rooted in conceptual understanding and rich in hands-on, sensory-based inquiry. Joel thrives in building opportunities for children to do STEM and extend those activities into home and outside school learning. Where is Mr. Eichenauer's classroom? It's anywhere, everywhere. During the first week of school, Joel takes his students outside to introduce them to the wonders of the world around them. He talks about developing one's senses to become a better observer. Listen for the birds, feel the texture of the soil, smell the scent of a flower. He asks students to ponder designs in nature and to think about how those designs have influenced engineers tasked with coming up with solutions to solve real-world problems. From tadpoles to pumpkins to rocks to cars and ramps to tuning forks and more, there is always something to poke in Mr. Eichenauer's room. It's messy, it's challenging, it's labor-intensive, and it's wonderful. And as I said to Joel before, you really are the poster child for STEM excellence. You not only teach STEM, you live it every day. There is no one more genuinely suited to represent STEM excellence in Indiana than you. At this time, let's please watch a video that was shared with this teacher's family, colleagues, and student body on Tuesday, November 25th during a celebration in his honor.
I think my favorite is his greeting of the students. Hello, scientist. He sets the stage for learning and exploring. He always greets them at the door with something for them to observe as they walk into his room. He's building excitement before they even sit down. Joel is a phenomenal educator who goes above and beyond to make sure students feel heard, important, loved, and gain a deep love for science. STEM is always a favorite special for my students. My students love going outside and being immersed in learning. Joel is the prime example of what an enthusiastic teacher is. He keeps the kids engaged in his lessons as well as outside of his special time allotted with them. He takes their curiosity and uses it to drive his instruction.
As a teacher, Joel finds ways to constantly be teaching and engaging the students in one way or another. He has a way of grabbing the students' attention and keeping it for the entire 50-minute STEM block. As a colleague, I have enjoyed and appreciated the way he pops into my classroom to add a tidbit of STEM related to whatever I am teaching.
I admire his enthusiasm, his energy, how he gets kids engaged and involved, always with a smile on his face. I don't think I have ever seen him having a bad day, and he probably had some. I also love how he has his classroom full of real things, plants, insects, seeds, frogs, all kind of things.
One of my greatest pleasures as an educator is seeing Joel work with students, especially outdoors. The little ones at MES follow him around, eager to learn, excited about finding bugs, flowers, and trees. It is joy to see students so engaged, and Joel's enthusiasm naturally curates their enthusiasm.
When you look outside of Manchester Elementary School, you will quickly notice the work of Mr. Eichenauer during STEM. Sunflowers and mums planted during STEM classes by students, new trees planted with third grade students, a solar waterfall, the hoop house, and bird feeders attracting birds for students to observe through their classroom windows. Mr. Eichenauer instills in all of our students at MES a love for learning, a curiosity about how things work and grow, and the ability to observe the world around them.
Joel has cultivated a spirit of inquiry, curiosity, and collaboration to our building here at Manchester Elementary School. STEM class quickly becomes many of our students' favorite times of the week, and that's all thanks to Joel's excitement and dedication.
Nice.
At this time, I'd like to invite the 2025 Indiana Excellence in STEM Education Award winner, Mr. Joel Eichenauer, to come up. On behalf of the School Board of Trustees, the entire school community, and all the students who you impact on a daily basis, I'd like to present you with this token of our appreciation and invite you to say a few words.
It's hard to be brief about something you're passionate about so much as this. Teaching's been in my blood for a long time. And I've had only a few people try to steer me otherwise. I've thought about this and shared it with very few people. I think Sue knows this. After my graduation speech for being salutatorian at Wabash High School, a lot of people wanted to shake my hands in the audience, and a prominent businessman said to me, "What are you thinking about doing with your life?" I said, "I'm going to Manchester College, and I'm going to major in elementary education." And he tips his head sideways and goes, "Ah, I thought you'd choose something more challenging than that." And those words have stuck with me to this day. So never underestimate the power of what someone in your position, school board members, or anyone else has when they speak those words to someone young with ideas and aspirations in life. So I determined then I was going to be the best at whatever I could do. And I am thankful to have landed at Manchester Community Schools because this place has given me the freedom to be creative and original and to follow those passions, to not take the cookie cutter and have to do it as it was taught 10 or 50 years ago, to be able to innovate, to be able to take my finger on the pulse of my clientele, my students, and figure out how to make learning relevant and important to them. I've talked with Sue about this and Linda before, but we've found a way to transcend 3 o'clock. Kids go home and play and repeat and do STEM lessons and STEM things. I hear from all the time from parents. I get parent square messages. I meet people in the grocery store and they tell me about their kids replicating or saving. And I see it too. They bring things in through the doorway. They share with me stories of what they noticed. Just on Saturday, a very struggling academic student, I get this message from his parent. It's a picture of this icicle hanging from the plants in front of their house. Never had communication with his parent before, but she reached out to me and said, "Gabe wanted you to see this picture." And I replied back and forth and engaged with that parent. But that's a way to draw people in, is to where do they fit in this world? Where do they fit in the world around us? And why are they important? And why is everything we learn about important? Why is reading, why is math important? It's truly so we can learn more about our own lives and be better scientists. So thank you. Thank you for supporting me. Thank you for letting me be who I am. And thank you, Sue, for not only nominating me, but also having the dream 9 years ago, but to create this program 8 years ago, because a lot of other schools have followed, and STEM education has been one of the hottest topics. And it's nice to be recognized, and it's nice to be awarded, and so thank you. On behalf of Manchester Schools, I appreciate you very much. Thanks.
Joel, shake your hand. These are the type of recognitions we need because our proposition in education is in the classroom, and I really greatly appreciate your efforts, so thank you.
And I will say finally, for every Joel Eichenauer there is on your staff, there's a lot of other ones out there, and we need to find ways to appreciate other people and recognize other people, because it only makes you want to work harder and do more. And that's one thing we never run out of in life is appreciations and good words to say to other people. It actually builds, it feeds that positive enthusiasm. And so if there can be some way that we can take moments and times to recognize other people and lift other people up in small ways or big ways, I think that goes a long way for the students, for the staff, and for everybody around. So thank you for the recognition, and let's keep looking at ways to making Manchester Community Schools a stronger and even better place in the future. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Financial report, Dr. Stevens.
Good evening. That's fine. Yep. So the numbers for November in education are, actually for both reports, better than what I had originally projected. Again, last meeting, I reminded you that in November we're going to make a lump sum payment for salary recognitions. Also, I did not expect this. In December, I told you the state would withhold because of our declining enrollment. They would do a catch-up in November or in December. They actually took part of it in November and part of it in December. So with that being said, if you look at the top, cash flow, we were down $13,000 in our revenue, and total expenses, we were $20,000 more than what we projected. So the revenue number includes the shortfall from the state for half of our ADM shortfall in our count in October. So that number's not near as drastic as I thought it'd be. Coming on down in the revenue numbers, you can see salaries, we are high, that's 69,000. Again, that was because of back pay that we completed after negotiations. And then the benefits, we were plus 34. Claims, we were in better shape than actual. And so overall, for the monthly expenses, we're down 20. When you add in our shortfall in revenue for the month, we were 33 below what we expected. So we ended the month at $2,378,000 positive in education fund. Going on to operations. Again, the top number is where you'll start. And again, that is overall. So you look at total revenue, we're up 33,000 from what we projected. Our expenses were 5,000. We say 5,000 if I want to look at it that way. You look at the revenue side and then at the total expense side. So for the month, we are anticipating being down 89,000. We're actually down 50, so variance is 38,000. So again, negative numbers because we will get our tax draw for the December payment anytime now, hopefully before we leave for Christmas. So that will turn that into a positive. And then the balance then for December will be a cash flow balance starting in January. So any questions on that information? All right, I have 3 resolutions for you. The first one you already passed. We did this as part of the budget adoption. It is the resolution for tax anticipation warrant. The reason I'm bringing it back is because the language that I used was not quite what the attorney wanted. So this is a cut and paste from what the attorney said I needed to have. Basically, this is authorizing us to use the Indiana Bond Bank for Operation Loan. We did this in 25, we're redoing it in 26. We can't tell you what the interest is because we don't know that until the loan passes. We also can't tell you the amount because we won't know that until we get a budget order. So this is simply giving us permission to use the Indiana Bond Bank for an operation loan. We will take out 80% of our total levy for 26. We pay half of it back after our first distribution in June and the balance of it in our distribution in December. So you have a resolution file that I need you to approve, so basically by vote, and I would like to do these independent of each other if I may. Sure.
Yep.
Second one is additional appropriation, and when I do budget, I told you before numerous times for those who have been around, when I do budget, I anticipate or I use low numbers on revenue, high numbers on expenses. That is just a method that I use to make sure that we are looking at things very carefully as we get into especially the later parts of the month. So when I did our budget for 25, I underestimated revenue and operations by $729,729. 729. I really want to get those two numbers really aligned. So the resolution is simply allowing us. Back up a second. So when you get a budget order 1782 notice, it basically says this is how much money. It doesn't say how much you're going to get. It's by the levy, and then you have other stuff. This is how much you're allowed to spend. So I underestimated our expenditure by $729,000. We have the money. I just don't have the authority to spend it. So what this does, it says, okay, we're balancing the books. We have this much money coming in. We are allowed to spend that much. My goal is not to spend that much, but it simply gives us the flexibility, and then we can roll it into 26. The third resolution is the same thing for the education fund. And again, I underestimated our revenue by $2,200,000. So it is simply saying we took this money in, we can now appropriate it, we have authority to spend, and obviously, as you saw in the report, our anticipation is to roll that money into 26. But it just gives us the ability to balance expenditures if we need to have stuff we take out of 25 and we avoid expenses in 26. So those are 3 resolutions. Any questions on those?
Well, let's start with the tax warrant.
Yep.
Motion to approve. Mr. Raymer, a second. Mr. Penrod, discussion. Why Indiana Bond Bank?
Because they pay all the upfront costs.
Okay, sure.
So attorney fees, all that is paid for by the bond bank.
Whose attorney recommended that you reword the motion?
Ours.
Okay.
Mr. Tim Shelley. Morgan County.
And this is not an uncommon procedure.
No.
In business, corporations borrow money overnight, to cover cash flow, so.
And in my career, I've done that on a weekend to cover cash flow. So you borrow on Monday or borrow on Friday and you pay
Sure.
it back on Monday.
Understood.
This keeps us from having to do that repeatedly through the year.
Okay. Call for the question.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, moving to the resolution, the additional appropriation resolution for operations funds, $729,729. How'd you do that? But anyway, a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion.
Mrs. Tobias, the second. Mr. Orr, discussion. So we could spend or save, right?
Yes.
Just to be proper? Yeah.
Correct.
So looking, rainy day fund.
Nothing spent's going forward.
No. No, the appropriation dies December 31st.
Okay, gotcha. But if it's not spent, it's go, the money.
Correct. Yeah.
Be spent by someone, yeah. All in favor?
Aye.
6-0, Randy. And thirdly, the additional appropriation resolution for the education fund in the amount of $2,200,000. Motion to approve, Mr. Raymer. Second, Mr. Penrod. Any discussion? Nope. All in favor?
Aye.
6-0.
Thank you, and I'll be back after a while.
Yep, thank you. Consent items. Claims, minutes, resignations, Mr. Castle.
Yeah, one resignation and 2 retirements. One resignation, Tracy Eubank, MIS custodian. A retirement after 42 years. Joe Kerr, Manchester Junior Senior High School, currently athletic secretary and also assist with the counselor department. And then after 39 years and a lot of coaching and a lot of hats, Mr. Jack Rupley for Manchester Community Schools, head of maintenance.
Thank you for your service. Yeah. Wow, Tracy, Joe, and Jack. Huh? Okay. Grants,
No grants this month.
donations. Someone want to read donations?
I can read them.
Thank you.
There was a $50 donation to the Manchester Junior Senior High School girls basketball program by Randall and Randa Ream. $500 donation to the Manchester Junior Senior High School APES physics trips west from an anonymous donor. $100 donation to Manchester Junior Senior High School girls basketball program by Brian and Brenda Lohman. $100 donation to MIS and a load of firewood for 4th grade Pioneer Day by GNF Services LLC, and a $100 donation to MIS for the 4th grade student activities by an anonymous donor. Total $850.
Awesome. Thank you, community. And thank you, Mrs. Tobias, for reading that. Motion for approval of consent items. Someone. Thank you, Mr. Esposito. Second, Mr. Raymer. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
6-0. Okay, approval for employee raises for those outside of collective bargaining agreement.
Yes, so as you know, last month we approved the collective bargaining agreement. As Dr. Stevens said in the education report tonight, that money was back paid. This recommendation addresses everybody who falls outside of the collective bargaining agreement, which would be basically all the rest of the employees. 3% is, Dr. Stevens and I have worked numbers. We're very comfortable with that number. It's a recommendation that we give a 3% increase to all employees that fall outside of the collective bargaining agreement.
Okay. Motion to approve, Mr. Raymer, a second. Mrs. Tobias, discussion.
Is this going to follow the same as the CBA where there's a raise this year and nothing next year?
No, it is not. This is
Why?
about half of what the teacher increase was this year. So what we would look at an increase this year, and then we would reevaluate next year, and then look at next year. Teachers this year were 6.6 in there, 6.6% up front. So.
And that included teachers not in the teacher association?
All certified teachers. The CBA covers all certified teachers.
So why, we're going on a 2-year cycle with teachers, but only on an annual basis with non-represented?
Correct.
Why the difference?
I think financially it's the responsible thing to do. Also, sometimes in some of those positions there are changes that occur. So we felt comfortable with half now, and I don't know if you want to address more of that, what we discussed, but.
Well, the other thing is, because non-certified salaries are so much different than certified staff, going 2 years without a salary increase is more of a burden than taking it up front.
Okay.
And that's just my experience from, I've done it both ways, and non-certified really prefer, it's my turn, having the raise every year instead of one out of 2.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's half. Sort of like cash flow, right?
Sorry.
Further discussion?
And this is typical annual raise request, so it's not like we've did 2 years in the past, so
Right.
this isn't, yeah.
Typical request. And that's one of the differences too, is the CBA was a 2-year agreement. Whereas everybody that falls outside of that CBA does not operate always on that 2-year agreement, so.
And, you know, from a school point, remember how much of our money goes to salary and benefits, and so, like, they're staying competitive, but there's also, you know, there is cash flow, and there is, you know, and as you look, as we, you know, this whole thing on the education fund and the transfer over to operations, and then whose salary's in which one, you know, the other thing is, you know, I hope, I'm just gonna say it, you know, I hope people appreciate these raises, right? And the conditions that we face as well, but we have, you know, we have to stay competitive. We've got external pressure to raise teacher, and I'm not against that, right? I don't think, you know, there's certain people in our society that don't make enough in my books. I mean, it's a balance that we're trying to do here. All with trying to keep the you know, our tax rate around $1, right? Trying to keep flexible so each board has room to work in and not, you know, stack on things, and especially not burden our taxpayers any more than they are. So, you know, that's sort of why the 3%, and that also gives flexibility going into next year, right? You know, one thing I've learned about being on a school board is you don't know what's next, you know, so. Yep.
And 3%'s a competitive increase. I've saw other governmental entities that are 1% or
Yep.
2%, so 3%'s, I think, a reasonable bump.
Well, if we bump everybody up like 6.6%, and we don't at least go halfway, right? That's, you know, you're trying to keep some balance here as well, so. Yep. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 6-0. Employment?
Employment, I think 8 positions are all extracurricular positions. At MIS, you have Jen Birch, Heather Turfinger, and Christy Schuler, intramural soccer coaches. At the junior senior high, you have Haley Backus, assistant FFA sponsor, Raquel Tuttle, MJHS winter color guard, Talon Selleck, volunteer wrestling coach at the junior senior high, Sean Ream, high school track assistant at the high school, And Madison Parson, volunteer girls wrestling coach at the junior senior high school.
All right. A lot of alumni there, isn't there?
Yep.
Motion to approve employment. Mr. Esposito, second Mr. Penrod. Any discussion? Welcome aboard. All in favor?
Aye.
6-0. And then athletic secretary recommendation, Joe Kerr.
Athletic secretary recommendation. So Joe Kerr is retiring, but doesn't want to be gone. So she would like to, wants to just work with Mr. Silvius in her athletic responsibilities, which has a lot to do with maintaining contracts for sporting events, ensuring physicals are proper and in place, officials, garnering workers for events. It's my recommendation that we retain her at no more than 20 hours, so she cannot exceed 20 hours a week. Right now she's full-time, but she will not be doing the counselor portion of her job. So my recommendation would be to retain her at her current rate of pay for no more than 20 hours per week to be an athletic secretary.
Okay, get a motion to approve Mr. Penrod, a second. Mr. Raymer, discussion?
So that's switching, I assume she's on a salary now, or is she on hourly?
Still hourly and no more than 20 hours. And so it gives her some flexibility in her retirement. If it's in between a sports season and things slow down a little bit and she's only needed 2 days that week for a couple of hours, that gives her that flexibility to do that. And yet still assist all of our student athletes and Mr. Silvius with athletics.
Is this a new part-time position?
It is not new. It's really a reduction of her current role.
Will there be a new position?
Well, you're gonna have to split it, right? Because are you gonna
Well,
backfill
we have a 30-hour-a-week person in that position. We're determining how to move forward with that. If that position would then become the full-time, which currently we have 70 hours between those two positions. If that position would move to full-time, we would have 60 hours between those two positions. So we're actually recognizing a little bit of a savings in that move. But we've not had that discussion yet regarding the counselor secretary responsibilities that's currently in that role.
Is this an ECA or ECA position, or is it just like how?
It's an employee.
It's an employee.
Yeah, it's an employee position. So currently, prior to her retirement, she's done, retirement is effective at the end of this month, the end of December. So currently we have her who is full-time, and she's split between athletics and assisting in the counselor's office, transcripts, scholarship information, etc. We also have a part-time, 30 hours, 28.75 hours a week, guidance person that helps in the guidance in the counselor department. So Mrs. Kerr is requesting, and through Mr. Silvius, to go down to no more than 20 hours a week after her retirement, with the flexibility to, if there's a day that takes 7 hours, it takes 7 hours, but at the end of the week, she cannot be over 20 hours a week. And currently, she's 40.
Okay.
So not a new position. It's half of her current position.
So is there an independent job description for what she's gonna do, and is there an independent job description for what this other person's gonna do? Because in our hiring policy, number one, there's gotta be like an open position for you to hire people, which she's retiring, so that, that's opening, but do you have, and I'm not against what you're doing, I'm just follow policy, I guess, on the position, so.
Right.
Just create a job description. I'd say that would be basic.
Yep, I can certainly create it from the job she's been doing for the last 41 years.
Well,
It'd be easy to pull that together.
Further discussion?
And this is more than just a gap to fill this semester, Joe. Potentially, it could continue past this year.
I think she was looking, she wanted to still be doing something, wanted to retire, still wanted to be doing something. And this meets Mr.
Mr. Silvius's needs in the athletic department and keeping with somebody who's very competent at that position. She's done it for a long time. But it also relieves her from some of that responsibility that she was having with the guidance department. So she's just maintaining the athletic side of the additional work.
And then this will be in which fund, operations?
That is out of probably the ed fund, right? Secretaries in the high school.
I would point out that net saving because of the filter insurance.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 6-0. Thank you. And then approval of Andrea Espacet, MIS, intramural soccer coach. Motion, Mr. Raymer. Second, Mrs. Tobias. Any discussion? How she keep you in line, Rick? That's what I'd like to know. All in favor?
Aye.
Rick, you gonna
I'll abstain.
abstain? 501, Randy. And then approval of 2026 school board meeting dates.
Yeah, if you see the proposed dates, they run comparable to our existing current calendar, second Tuesday of each month.
Anybody see any problems there?
I would just ask a question. Is Tuesday the best date and is 6 p.m. the best time? I'm assuming Tuesday works because you have Monday to kind of gather yourself. Or, I mean, why Tuesday?
That's the way we've always done it, you know.
I'm not
That's
proposing a
exactly
change,
why.
but there are less school events on Monday evenings likely than.
You're not here Tuesday or Mondays.
Oh, yeah, I mean, those are legit. I don't mean to stir up anything.
No, honestly, Rick, I think just because that's the way it's always been done, right? Is Tuesdays at 6 o'clock, but I don't, you know, we could always look at that though. Like
we did
Friday,
5:30
8
for-
p.m.
we did 5:30 for
You can do
quite a
Friday at
while.
8 p.m. all you want.
Be here by yourself.
But yeah. So first of all, approval on the schedule. Did we do that already?
We haven't had a motion.
Yeah, can we have a motion before we go in discussion? Mr. Raymer, can we have a second? Thank you, Mr. Orr. Now we can discuss it. But no, yeah, I kind of like the questioning, but.
And certainly you could move to approve the January 13th date because you have to do reorganization before the 15th every year. And then if we want to have a work session to discuss the calendar and the dates that the board meets, we certainly could do that. Or you can accept it as presented. You know, either way, you could table it, make a motion to table it, and.
What was your motion, Brian? Accept as is, or table it? I don't know, I want to table it until the new year, but.
Right.
We can always bring it back up, right? So.
I'm not convinced either way. I was just sitting here
My
curious.
motion is to accept it as is with the potential to alter it after the first of the year.
And Mr. Orr, do you still second that motion?
The second part, Brian, to seek further discussion after the first of the year based on that?
There.
If this is a time for discussion, my
Yeah.
my only item is I've rearranged other commitments based on the second Tuesday meeting. So I don't have a problem if that's an issue for other members, we need to accommodate that and talk about it. So I'll stay with my second. Let's take care of January and then we can.
All in
revisit
favor?
this. Aye.
Aye. 6-0. Hey, Dr. Stevens, you're back up. Fred, you got any Heartland update tonight? A little bit?
Just very brief.
Okay.
I don't have to, I could say.
No, that's all right. We got,
Really brief.
we're cooking pretty good tonight. Well,
Can we get out of here before 7, that'd be great.
what'd you
I
say?
said if we can get out of here before 7, that'd be great. I have a band concert to go to.
Right on.
We'll make it.
Hey, where is that?
It's at the high school.
Okay.
It's a junior high one.
That's what I thought.
How do you keep up with it all? Disappear?
Calendar, Google.
That clock's
Yeah.
off, by
Google's
the
very
way.
helpful.
Get it
Man.
married,
I've
and then you
already
don't have to
been
worry about it.
threatened to have things thrown at me, and I haven't even started.
It was popcorn. Come on now.
Randy. Randy.
Okay, over the last few weeks or a couple months, we've been looking at Senate Bill 1, which is the rewrite that the Senate did on school funding, especially on the operations side. So this is to give you an overview of kind of what that bill says, some of the impact of that, and some of the things that we can decide down the road if you want to try to address the shortfalls that we're going to be experiencing. So again, is this a financial landscape as of today? These are topics I'm going to hit. So why are we doing this? What the offsets look like, a referendum obligation, first mortgage, hybrid, how, and then my recommendation on how I think would be the best way of proceeding forward. Why? So I want to go back to the ESSER or CARES dollars. So starting in about 2021, COVID hit, and the feds came out and dropped a whole bunch of money in 3 different pots. So they did ESSER 1, 2, and 3. ESSER 3 ended in about 2022. That's when the last of the money arrived. And then there was this thing called a funding cliff in basically 23 that said, thou shalt spend all of the money that you've received, or it goes back to the feds. So the reason I use this is because this was all new revenue that came in. Okay, so this was our general fund, education fund, kind of an upward slope. Then all this new cash hit. And then after it all disappeared, you still kind of started where we left off and kept going forward. Okay, so that was the ESSER dollars. So this influx of dollars that came in had to be spent over 3 years and disappeared. This is what's going to happen on the operations side. So in operations, over the years, you've got some growth, which is called the growth quotient. The state has said each year you can allow your operation fund to increase by this amount. It's been about 4%. So you take what you're currently receiving, multiply it by 0.04, and that's how many new dollars is you're going to get in 26, historically. What this legislation did in 25 with Senate Bill 1 is said, oh, by the way, we're now going to start lopping off revenue streams for you. So the first one is property tax cap. So when Governor Daniels was in office, they put in these things that are called caps. So in residential it was 1%, for farms it was 2%, and businesses was 3%. So you could not exceed 3% of your assessed value for taxes. 2% for farms, 1%. Legislature decided that number wasn't accurate enough or wasn't grand enough, so they ended up increasing the caps for the first year for residential. So instead of 0.1%, it actually drops. Second year, in 27, the same thing happens, and right now there's no growth quotient. So whatever we're getting in 26 is what we get in 27 with additional people. So if let's say this year my house is $90,000 and I go to $110,000 in assessment, I'm now capped at about $95,000. So we've lost about $15,000 of revenue growth because of the cap. And in 28, the bottom drops out, and nobody can tell us what that looks like. Because in 28, there's a $2 million personal inventory, personal property tax that comes off. So if I have a plant or a business that has $2 million in personal property, I can write that off. The question nobody can answer yet is, let's say I have $10 million in personal property. Can I somehow split that out and create 5 entities, and each entity can write off $2 million? Yes. If I can, and I have 5 entities in this district that have $20 million of assessed value in personal property, I'm now losing $100,000. And that's off That's assessment. That's gone. So the reason I don't have any numbers out in 28 is because even our actuarials can't tell us what that looks like, because we also lose Lowit it. Now there's some discussion that Lowit, local option income tax, may be put back in as some allowance by the legislature. What I'm hearing the most is that we can ask a county government, local government, to release some of their Lowit dollars back to us. I don't think that's going to happen relatively or readily. I may be wrong, but because local business or local municipalities are going to be losing money, I don't think they're going to give up a revenue stream to support other governmental units. So here's our historical funding floor for operations. It's going to take these drops, and you'll notice that even after the drop, there's not much growth. So the money that you're getting in 26 may be your high water mark in operations for some time to come.
The one component you don't have factored in here is the local TIF, like on expansion and improvement.
Well, we don't have much TIF right now, and if it is, it's residential. So if, and yeah, that was one of the questions that came up. Because we don't have much TIF, and what we do have, again, is pretty marginal. It's not going to have much impact. Now, if you have a factory that comes in that is heavy industrial, and they take a TIF, that has a whole lot of sequences. The first of which is how long is that TIF district? And I can spend a lot of time talking about TIFs because we had one of the biggest TIF districts in the state for a long time. But yeah, so TIF's not in here at all. But again, we don't have that much involved in TIF at this point. So this is today. So if we do nothing, this is what it looks like going forward. So right now, and again, this kind of goes back to our cash flow that you saw before, we're anticipating in the education fund ending the year about $2,083,000 in the black. In 26, we anticipate that number going down to about 1,482, and in 27 going down to 536. Operations. We'll end the year this year at about 203. We'll be negative next year at 223, and the following year will be negative 676,000 if we do nothing. So offsets. So how do we fix this short term so that we don't end in these bad numbers? What I'm proposing, if we don't do anything else, again, you'll see that we're standing end of the year the same. The $3 million TIF or first mortgage that we took out last year, we have about $1.7 million of that left. So we did a bunch of projects this summer, as you know. If I leverage those dollars in that first mortgage and I start moving expenses out of education and operations and start picking those dollars up out of the first mortgage, then we can do this out of the next 2 years. So we can leave next year at about 6.8 mil, and the following year about just short of $1 million. And this is where it really catches up to us, because if I do the offsets in 25, again, same number you saw before, instead of being negative in 26 and 27, I can leverage this so that we're positive those 2 years. The problem is I can't do year 3. We'll have no revenue. So by 28, this number will be negative, and in all likelihood, this number will be closer to 500,000 cash balance year end. All right, what other options do we have besides offsets? We can do a referendum. If we did a referendum, we target November of 26 as the date. You can do an 8-year. You could be about 33 cents as the ask. You wouldn't have to go that high, but you ask for whatever amount, and then each year you can set how much money you want or how much tax levy you want to apply to that. So let's say you are authorized to raise 33 cents, and that would generate $2 million a year. That can be used for any operational expense, salaries, benefits, anything else. But let's say in 27, so we approve this in 26, and 27, we only want that number to be 15 cents. You can do that. The next year you may want 18 cents. The next year 11 cents. So over 8 years, each year you can determine how much you want to apply towards a referendum. It can be used for any expense, and rate can be adjusted annually, as I just said. The next one is a general obligation bond. So these are all taxable because taxable gives us the most flexibility to do what we need to do. So for taxable, you can use it for all this stuff, and more importantly, for these, in salaries and benefits and operations. How we get the taxable is we go back through, and we have done this for the last daily, it seems, forever. Yeah. So you have to go back to all your old expenses that were from your Cume Building Fund. For those of you who don't remember, what is now operations used to be called the Cume Building Fund. Then it went to the Capital Projects Fund, and now it's the Operations Fund. And we also had Transportation Fund in there and a bus replacement. So you have to go back to all those old records and see what was paid by the corporation, and you can use those as ways of getting to a taxable bond. So basically, if I bought $1 million worth of buses out of transportation and operations, I can now offset $1 million into a taxable GO money that can be used for salaries, benefits, and everything else. So this general obligation is a calculation based on your assessed value. Then it takes off how much you already have committed. So at the end of this year, we make our payments on the current bonding, and we have a GO bond that goes out to about 2023 for the connector. Right now, we can raise $2,041,000 in a GO. If we waited until our June payment, which would be, actually it's June payment, it shows up in July, we're going to raise $2,151,000. Again, I talked about it'll be a 2-year bond, $1 million a year, take it out, pay it off in 2 years, and would terminate in December of 28. First mortgage. Now this looks similar to the first mortgage we took out now almost 2 years ago. So this would be sized around 18 cents. It would run for 3 or 4 years. Would generate $3 million initial payment transfer into the corporation accounts. Then we would annually spend about $1,000 or $1 million a year. And again, because it's a taxable, we can use it for equipment, salaries, and benefits. Now, the problem, not a problem, but the difficult of using the first mortgage is it cannot be for any movable equipment. You cannot offset a first mortgage for buses. You can't use that as an offset. Computers, printers, anything that can be moved from point to point, you can't use as a mortgage, if you will, or into a taxable first. So all it has to be just like we can go back and look at all of the energy savings that we've generated over the years. Okay, so every bulb that we replaced, if we use corporation fund, we can use that as an offset for doing a first mortgage, but we can't use a bus. And the issue with doing this right now is we have to go back and look at things that were under a holding corp from 2012 and 2013. In the meantime, we have changed accounting systems. So we used to use a thing called CompuTrol. We now use Voice. So trying to go back and resurrect 12-year-old purchase orders that we can now allocate against the first mortgage is time consuming. Because we have to go back to each, in some of these cases, we have to go back to the original purchase order to see where it was paid and what building it went into. Hybrid. So what this would be is a combination of the first mortgage and GO. So we would take out a 10-year max of $10 million. Now, what that does is says, okay, for 10 years, the board has authority of raising up to $10 million. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to raise a dime. You could raise $2 million this year and skip 2 or 3 years, and raise $2 million down the road. But this gives you the authority in today's statutes to make this adjustment.
What do you mean raise? We could raise 2 million. Can you?
Okay, so you would have the authority of saying, okay, over 10 years, you can raise $10 million. Okay, we get to do a GO bond under this, just like the GO bond I talked about before, and say, you're gonna do a $2 million GO bond this year under the language that would be generated for this. Okay, what could happen is, right now, we have about $8 million of write-offs that we could compare to get taxable. Okay, so you could do 4 GO bonds, 2 year, 2 year, 2 year, 2 year, and generate $8 million, and we can match that with bus purchases and copiers and all that other stuff. Okay, or we can say, okay, we're going to start with a 2 year GO, and then in 2 years we'll take out a 3 or 4 year first mortgage. But all the language and all the legal work is done to do it.
Done now. Right.
So right now, yep.
Well, my issue is nobody knows the future, and trying to project out to 2028 for any business or even your home, your personal expenses is going to be sketchy.
Yep.
But we have to make some
Educated
accommodation for 2028 and beyond. If we don't do that, we're not being responsible board.
And my concern is this all deals with language that's in statute today.
Exactly.
That could change in April.
Yeah. And that would be grandfathered.
Yes. As long as we start early. Yep. As long as we start before the session ends. Good questions, though. All right. If we do this, if we do the hybrid, again, we start here.
10.
This is education fund. We would end next year at about the same point, and the following year, much better position than what other screens I've shown you. In operations, everything's in the black. And I told Mr. Castle, as you get out to the outlying years, pick a number and say, okay, we're going to roll $300,000 forward. The balance goes into rainy day, because at some point, all this is going to end, and you're going to have reserves someplace so you can operate 2 or 3 years in the unknown.
But the issue has always been the shortfall in the operations fund, not in the education fund.
Correct.
Yep. So that's probably a good thing.
Yeah, because in this case, we're not transferring $750,000 a year from MedDOT. We will still transfer some. We'll transfer $400,000. But you're saving a lot of money, not a lot of money, you're saving revenue that can go into rainy day to protect you down the road under this scenario. Okay, how does this work? This is your historical tax rate. And I'll tell you, until I put this together, I should have known this because I've been here long enough, but I didn't. So we've gone from 93 to $1.05 to 88 to $1 to 92 to $1. Our tax rate in this district has done this every year. My thought last year, and I told you, is to try to set everything so it's $1. Obviously, I'm anticipating our tax rate this year is going to be around 87 cents. I did a terrible job of anticipating the difference between here and here. We had a 10% assessed valuation growth. Had that nowhere in my plan. Great news, but I hadn't planned on it. We also have about $500,000 falling off of mortgage rates that we have a debt coming off. I thought I captured enough of that when we suggested doing the bus replacement through the bond bank. Well, obviously we should have bought 4 buses instead of 2. So that's how we do this. So again, what I'm trying to get to is a $1.99, $1 rate that is consistent going forward. So we don't have this, we just have this. So yeah, it's going to be a tax rate. No matter what we do, if we do anything, it's going to be a tax rate increase. We don't have a choice. We can't make money any other way. I don't have a printing press that the feds will allow me to use.
So, like this whole, so number one, you got a pretty crappy process, right? So variance in your results is not unknown, and I have no problem with that thing varying year to year if that means we're doing due diligence. And so, this, you know, when we use the term revenue, that's kind of foreign to me, right? Because this money's coming out of everybody's
Taxpayer.
pocket.
That's what I just said.
including mine.
You're gonna have a tax rate increase no matter what we do.
And so, you know,
Do-
if we're looking at like that $1, so looking out like 10 years on this hybrid thing you're coming up with now, right? What's the difference between what we're doing, like going 2 and 4 years out? Like 1 and 2 years out on GO?
Saves your rate. It saves you on issuance costs.
Just from the redundancy.
Mm-hmm.
Where are rates going?
Anybody want to answer that?
So that would be my concern on like a 10-year,
Well, you're
locked into a,
you're not going to be able to do a 10-year. You don't have the capacity to do it.
so
That's why if you do a GO, you're going to do a 2-year GO. You'll be paid off. You do another 2-year GO, or you throw a first mortgage in there somewhere. You're not borrowing 10 years. You're simply giving the board, this board and the future board, the capacity to borrow up to $10 million over 10 years and avoid some issuance costs down the road.
Okay. So the only thing gaining going 10 years versus doing it, you know, the way we've been kind of looking at it is you're not hitting, you know, you're not getting a price for that transaction again.
Yep.
But then there's a potential running risk if interest rates go down.
Yeah, but at 2 years, your rates.
So you'd redo this deal, this is just like a clearance basically for a float of $10 million over 10 years.
Yep, you're just going to take it to $2 million chunks.
But that bond is paid off in 2 years.
Correct.
So you're rolling over.
Yep.
So tell me why we wouldn't do this. Give me some reasons
Discussion.
why it's a bad idea.
Okay, so thank you, because I was trying to figure out how to do this, and I will tell you, Tony and I talked, and he said, do it this way. I think that's exactly what you need to do. I think you need to do the hybrid. I think you need to do a 10-year lookout and do the language, do all the paperwork that says it gives the board the flexibility of doing up to $10 million over 10 years, and each board can decide if they want to do a $2 million or do a first mortgage. You'll start with a $2 million because we can justify that just by buses that we bought, and then in 2 years we can come back and say, okay, we have $3 million capacity. We can do a first mortgage. So you do a 2-year and a 3-year, that's out 5, then you do a 2 or whatever. I really think out of everything, this is your best bet because on the long term, it's cheaper than anything else. If you don't want to do a hybrid for 10, then the next option is you do a 2-year GO. And then in 2 years, the board can decide we're going to continue this. It gets you to 28. That's not a great year to go back to the public and say, gee, we're going to renew a GO because nobody knows what's going to happen in 28. We can do a first mortgage. The problem with the first mortgage is we have a lot of work to do to try to get the first mortgage to an early enough 26 date to have an impact. Because we have to go back and pull a whole bunch of data that we don't have. We have to go back to the bondholder bank from 2012 and 2013 and get the abstracts before we can do anything else. The last thing I think we need to consider is a referendum. In my personal opinion, I know districts that have done this. Win or lose, the district loses. You have the animosity that's created. Unless you win at a 90% rate or higher, you are going to have people who are just absolutely incensed that you do a referendum. Whether you win or lose, just the word is enough to cause people to have heartache.
Could we go back to the tax rate?
Yep.
In real dollars, what is that going to mean for the average property taxpayer?
Here's the formula. So you can run this whatever you want. So you take an assessed value. Let's say you have an assessed value that is $1 million. You divide it by 100, Now you take the tax rate and multiply it by that number, and that's the rate. That's the levy.
But what, okay, I can go home and I can play with these numbers and figure that out. I mean, I would vote for more consistency. I think I'd be in favor of more, going to $1 or somewhere about $1.
Well, and
But-
what I do is I try to protect the taxpayers a little bit. What are we spending the money on? You know,
Salaries and
that's-
benefits.
Right.
That's what you're
a
gonna
good
spend the money
chunk.
on.
And most
On what?
referendums are,
Salaries and benefits.
Well,
So you
that's
don't have
what
to-
we
so-
do spend money on, that's what I mean, you know, and at some point, there's also sometimes there's right sizing, you know, on things as well besides going more. And I don't have any problem with this, you know, with the thing, it's basically the geo and this is what we've been kind of doing going along here, right? Geo bond, the tax warrants and doing stuff, all we're doing here is like going out and saying, okay, we're gonna look 10 years and we're gonna do paperwork that approves this for 10 years.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then we're still, it's still gonna be the flexibility of doing it, so the board's got the flexibility,
And that's the key.
What-
But it also gives us stability and control over what may happen in
As long as you have
2028.
control over how the money's spent, and so when you do
Of
all these
course we do.
resolutions, right, so, you know,
Right.
these, again,
We're
I've
just-
been on this board for 6 years, and I've been through some stuff that's not gonna happen at this school board again. So when you look at extended money, that's even more important, that we're looking at the physicals, right, of where we're spending that money as a board. So that's just the point I'm trying to make here, right?
What the goal is to stop transferring so much money from education to op. The bottom line, that's what we're trying to accomplish. Because that's not sustainable. Right now, basically for 25, we're going to transfer 900,000, which is roughly 9%. Just even it out. You can go up to 15% by statute. They say you can go higher than that, but they want you to try to focus no more than 15%. You can't pay 15% of our education fund and move it to operations every year.
Right. And
It's-
some
it's a
school
loss leader.
systems are doing that.
Oh, yeah.
They're right up against that 15%.
Yep.
So we've been pretty responsible, or you have, those of you that have been here for a while, and the way they.
When possible, let's put it that way.
When possible. But, well, again, going back, you know, to this hybrid, we're not saying we're gonna take any of that money.
Correct.
$1, it just gives us, it's just like a businessman going out and getting a business line of credit.
That's it.
Exactly. It doesn't, it just helps you sleep at night.
Yeah, as a homeowner, you're simply taking an equity loan. You may not use it, but you have the line of credit there if you want to use it for something.
And every dollar has to be approved by this board or any future board.
Yep.
Okay.
To Fred's. You hope so, yeah.
How do you move the 87 to $1?
Tax rate increase. So it goes to debt service. Because your jail money would be coming in, you pay it out through debt over a 2-year period.
It's a revolving line of credit.
That the board can decide to renew on a semi-annual or biannual basis.
does the hybrid model allow for us to still do projects in our capital project plan
Yeah,
that we have?
that's outside of all the scope.
Okay.
That's baked into the system and into a rate.
Which I think that's very important to keep up on that. We cannot get behind
Yeah.
and we aren't playing catch up.
And that's why I don't like the offset, because it's going to use up some of the money that we set aside for projects is going to now go to claims. I don't like that. That's not what we said. That's not what we raised the money for. But if we don't do anything else, I've got to do that to make sure we're in the black. I don't like it, don't want to do it. But if the board says we're not doing anything, that's my only stopgap.
Well, and I think you guys are nailing, here's what I sort of see is in the education arena right now, people have this word survive is kind of the thought. We need to thrive. And so when we're looking at all these budgets and stuff, is our budget right-sized in operations is my major question, right, as a school board member? Because we do a lot of transfer from education to operations. So, but this is mainly what we're doing. We're just going out like 10 years, right? And we're writing paper for 10 years versus what we usually write for 2 years.
Here, and I've used this example before. It's a terrible example, but I'll do it again. The district that I retired from, that I was at for 40 years, is almost a carbon copy of this district. Okay? Two outlying buildings, joint junior, senior high school, same enrollment. The difference is that district's heavy industrial and their operation fund is more than double what you get here. Like a draw. You are so condensed on your operation fund, and even within that, you have 2-3 entities that are not paying at all on property tax, which hurts you even worse or even more. So you are very strict, very contingent, very limited on your operation fund simply because you have very little assessed value. That's not your fault. It's not the community's fault. It's just where the community lies. Physically, you have no rail. You don't have great road work. You have 13, but you don't have state highways. My old district had 2 federal highways, and at one time had more railroad crossings in my community than all but 2 counties in the state, in just my school district. So.
Well, and then you got the thing that makes no sense to me still is we still have district boundaries within the county, and that's how the NVA is basically split up. So you got the school corporation with a large amount, and then you got 2 corporations with small amounts, which to me, there are no district boundaries anymore. So I don't understand why that isn't split in thirds, right, for this county. And then if you run the risk of another school starting up, whatever. But that, there's potential, some equity, and there is no equity in operate. Like
No, you're absolutely
across
right.
the state, right? It's what we have. So that's why we all have to work together, right, and get businesses in and build a community. So, okay,
Jeff, what's the timing on when decisions need to be made?
Earlier the better. Because again, you have the legislature will be in session shortly, that all this could change. I would recommend if you have a direction that we start the process in January. If we did, we would have revenue coming in March or April. And then if you do the hybrid, you're locked in for 10 years and your grandfather, there's nothing can be done to you at that point.
So when you say everything could change, are you making the assumption that it could only get worse?
Yes.
Yeah. It's not like we can do this and they go, just kidding.
My concern is the state's going to hear what I'm saying and they're going to say,
I'm going to make a motion that we adopt the hybrid bond for all the reasons you have set forth.
I would second that motion.
discussion?
Say things this next legislative session improves in schools. The situation, even with this, we don't have to move forward with the plan as is. It's just that backstop that we can't do.
Availability.
correct.
I feel comfortable with that.
Are you open to a name change?
Whatever you want to do, yes.
Will you put your name on this?
No.
Project Stevens?
Yeah.
I will say, you could use a JFS, I mean, that's fine, but.
Further discussion?
I just really appreciate you guys going through and looking at this as deep as you guys have. It's been a task.
So vote tonight or vote January? Either one? Or?
Tonight, because if you approve the hybrid, we'll start having language and process here in January, at your January meeting.
Brian, any further discussion?
No.
This, I'll say this in the future, like, you know, when we're changing things like this, I think you better pop this on us a little quicker, because this is one I'd really, like to fill out a little quicker.
We've had two discussions on this.
Well, not kind of the hybrid option, but all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 6-0.
All right. I have tons of backup data. If anybody wants to see it, I'll be happy to sit down with you and go through anything that you have questions about. We'll get the process started, and you'll start seeing some paperwork at your January meeting.
Have your attorney review the language the first time around, so we don't have to do it twice.
Well, and again, like, I don't think it's a locking mechanism on any future boards, right? That would be my contention. They can resolve it.
Even for the first round,
Do that in January if you want it.
yeah, even in the first, even if you approve the January meeting, you'll have special meetings in February. Until you actually authorize the issuance of bonds, which would be in March, nothing happens. You're not locked into anything.
We wouldn't have to borrow $1.
Nope.
In 10 years.
In 10 years, you wouldn't have to do a
Just gives us
thing.
the flexibility and predictability and stability, financial stability.
Correct.
At $1.
That I can borrow, or I can actually lend it to you.
It's only 10.
All right, thank you.
Thank
You
you.
can borrow $1 from me,
Are you
Jeff.
running in the
Interest rate.
No, I'm talking about the tax rate. You guys.
same issues too?
Interest rate's going.
Okay, where are we at? Heartland
Yeah.
update, Mr. Orr.
I just have two very brief items. They have something called Count Day. See, I'm learning. But something we may not realize, we have 83 students from Manchester Community Schools that are attending Heartland and learning down there. So it's a huge part of it. The other point I'd like to make is we have seen the number of people and companies in this area step up and make donations. Same things happen at Heartland. Somebody donated welding rods. Something I wouldn't know a welding rod if I saw one, but apparently they're pretty expensive. But former alums that are out there working now know that students need this and go ahead and donate it. So a lot of good things going on down there, and a number of our students are participating and learning there. So there you go.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Mr. Orr. Legislative update, Adam?
The big topic is redistricting right now in a special session, so that's got a lot of eyes down there early, and as far as the regular session will start January 5th. I believe the bill filing deadline is January 8th, so there's a lot of conversations happening on which representatives are going to take up certain issues and initiatives. So I think this might be more eventful than what other kind of in-between sessions will be. Just the fact of kind of will there be a rebound from last year? What cleanup work? So it'll be a fun session nonetheless. So I'll have more probably January and February when they actually start seeing what bills are going to start getting some traction. So.
Right on. How many of you saw the new proposed congressional map?
I did.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy.
Yeah, so we go kind of
With Lake County.
stuck us with Lake County,
Yeah.
right, and the whole deal. I'll just say this, like, legislator, and that's not an easy job either, but, I think some of the things that come out of our county don't help us at times, right? And so, I don't know, I mean, people, it's American, speak freely, I guess, but, so. Superintendent comments.
Obviously, a lot going on school-wise. All the winter sports are in full effect. Concerts going on. Matter of fact, I think there's a choir concert going on right now. Other than that, honestly, the last probably month, 6 weeks, Dr. Stevens and I we've spent a lot of whole days sitting in his office discussing exactly what we discussed tonight, discussing Senate Bill 1, its impact. Shelley Leifert and I went down to an IASBO presentation last week on Thursday to discuss Senate Bill 1. Probably 300 superintendent and business people in attendance. And just not a great picture painted. A lot of boards are having this very discussion that we're having right now, or that we had tonight. Accountability model. The new accountability model, they're going back to letter grades for the first time in 8 years, supposed to be released in December. They have now delayed that until January because there was a glitch in the public commenting link that they had so the public could give input. So they created that link. That's now moved to January. but probably had a 2-hour discussion today with Sue Janegi and Brady McClure, just talking about the accountability model, course offerings, et cetera. So it's been a busy month, a lot going on. Senate Bill 1 has been a hot topic in about every superintendent meeting I've been in. In November at the state convention, it was a point of contention at this IASBO meeting, and in a whole lot of email and superintendent study council meetings. It's kind of a topic of a discussion. So the good news is, in my opinion, we got to start tonight with shine on one of our teachers, and I agree with him. We need to do it more. He's outstanding, an outstanding teacher from an outstanding school community and school corporation that's doing a lot of great things for kids. So that's my superintendent report.
Thank you. Did you say A+? Is that our grade?
They haven't done them yet.
Oh, okay. All right.
But I did tell you, I think in November, that they haven't rolled the model out, and it's supposed to be approved now in January, but they are grading us on the 25-26 school year on an accountability model that they haven't released yet. So,
Surprise.
Grading whom?
School.
That's right, we're gonna put our best foot forward.
School board comments.
Thank everybody who's kind of managed around the community with the bridges. Randy's been sending out some messaging. It's kind of a mess, but I think just changing patterns of people, and it's working out okay. So the South Market Street Bridge is soft closed this week and full closure next week. But if it's a good winter, I think maybe this can come to an end sooner than what we had anticipated, but I'm not going to give any dates out right now. So let's just
I saw like that little line, I saw everybody waving at everybody and saying hi and everything.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah. No, good work, Adam. Anybody else?
I don't envy you, Adam.
Hey, I just, from a school board, that we have these meetings at the start of the month and we're gonna miss Christmas. So wishing everybody a Merry Christmas, all the people at the school, our taxpayers, and especially all the students, hoping that they have, an enjoyable Christmas and time with their family, those that have family, and hope everybody stays safe. So, other than that, Tony, you, are superintendent. Have you shared that with everybody, your graduation?
No, I haven't. Well, I know you guys know that I.
Fred wanted grades, right?
Yeah.
So
Fred wants my grades. Fred, I think it was a 97.8, I believe, but I can double check that.
97.8. That would be an A in my
Yeah. I did start a program through Purdue University to study Lean Six Sigma, lean manufacturing, green belt, and lean manufacturing black belt. Really see some applications where I can apply some things within the school and run some processes to make us even more efficient, especially in light of when you talk about things like Senate Bill 1 and its impact, and you're looking how to operate lean and operate efficiently and cost efficiently. But I did pass my green belt, so I got that official official certificate and gonna hang it up in my office. I'm proud of it. I call Mike every once in a while and say, man, I don't know what I signed up for when I signed up for this at Purdue, because this 50-year-old mind dealing with some of the algebra and the math computations, but it's been good. It's been very good. I see some real practical applications, and I'm excited moving forward. So.
Bring your certificate and we'll present
I will.
it to you.
That's right.
how many companies in our area, in our county, use Lean Six Sigma in their operations?
A lot.
Anybody know? OG Intertech, big, right? Rick Sereno. Ford, work with their engineers and train them. So we, our largest employers do, Strauss Provimi, right? David's grandsons went through class. So our largest employers. So hopefully, that whole arena, continuous improvement, that, I see a big gain, right, in public education for that. And it's simple, right? Getting people to look for waste, right? Doing things, in a better manner and more capable. But I'm telling you, like, what I'd really love is run a project on like student count, and we started one like on real knowledge attainment. I really want to know what that y equals f of x is. Like, we all know like what we're born with up here has a large effect in that. you know? But like, what else? The environmental impacts on these kids, Linda knows, right? We used to not, you know, they used to say, hey, we can't make sure they're fed, but we sure do now. So what are the other things like we can do for these kids? And some of these things should be done at home. But again, if they're not, right, we got a perfect opportunity to set them up for success. And what Joel said I loved, right? It's all about having purpose. So Merry Christmas to everyone. Motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Mr. Penrod,